Okay. Hey, everyone. And hi, Andrea. I'm so excited you're here with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. So, Heath already gave us a little introduction that's not in the recording, but I'm just going to repeat a few things for everyone who's going to see the recording. This will be uploaded to YouTube and probably as a podcast as well. Um, so, this is our very first episode of this new Deck Creators podcast that we're creating. Um, I'm co-hosting this with Heath, who you can see on screen right now. Um, Heath and Jason are the founders of Rage Create, and they've launched quite a few decks together. My name is Anna Frolik. I am the founder of Wonderland Publishing, and I've been creating my own decks for more than 10 years, and I've been supporting my clients on this journey of creating their decks for the past 6 years. And this past year, back in the fall, we launched this community together, the Deck Creators Launchpad and community. And we are, all of us together, we're supporting creators on their journey of designing and selling their own decks. And so we're hoping to bring on more creators like you, Andrea,
Thank you.
to just really build this community and support each other on our journeys, because we all are on our own unique journeys with our creative work and our deck creations, and we all have had different experiences and things we've learned, and it's really beautiful to come together in this way and learn from each other. So I'm super happy you're here with us today. Um, so I'm going to give you a little bit of time to introduce yourself as well, but I'll just say a few general things. So Andrea is the creatrix of Nourishing Witch, and she has created two decks, the Seeds of Magic Tarot, which I have here. And I really love this one. I moved from the West Coast to Ontario last year, and I had to be really selective about which decks to bring, but this one made it. And now you just recently created a new deck, the Elders Council Oracle deck, which isn't out yet, but you're going to be launching it on Kickstarter pretty soon. So I'm excited to hear more about your journeys with both of your decks.
Mm. So exciting.
Yeah, so I saw you just got the like proof copies or samples for your new deck.
hmm
Do you have it there with you?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, super excited.
For
Looks
those of you who
beautiful.
are here on video, this is the Elders Council. More magic to unfold inside. I'm sure we're gonna get there.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to see some of the cards as well. Um, yeah, to start, I would just like to give you a little bit of time to introduce yourself, maybe share a little bit about your journey, how you got started on your journey of maybe working with card decks in general, and then
Mhm.
also I'd really love to hear a bit more about what inspired you to create your own decks in the first
Mhm.
place, and kind of what the journey has been like for you since then.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for offering the space for all of you here. It feels really, really good to share these with new hearts, new humans. Um, Decks, I guess it was my earliest spiritual awakening came through a deck of cards. I was going through a very, very tough breakup, and I had a friend back in the day, like 18 years ago. And she was older than me, and she was like, hey, I have this something that is a little weird, but maybe you can give it a try. I know we've had like a really rough time. Why don't you come to our place and just, um, yeah. So I went to her, and she had these angel deck cards, card deck. And so I went to her house. I got this deck. I had never had any other approach with them. And I shuffled them, and the message that came out was the first thing that calmed me in weeks. And I was like, okay, there's something here. There is something here. I am liking this. I don't know what it is. And then that really started a whole process. Funny enough, that's how Anna and I met. Also, I don't know how many years ago, like, yikes, like
That was in
14
2011,
years
I
ago.
think. Yeah, June 2011. Yeah.
Exactly. Through following that path of like, what are these decks? What are the angels? What are crystals? It was very fresh. I was like in this very, very tender, young, early awakening. Um, and after that experience, I started collecting decks. It became like a really beautiful thing to surround myself with, to support myself with. And I knew in my heart that at one point I would create one. I had no clue how, what, all the things. Um, but I did feel like it would eventually cross my path. And to give you also a little bit more context, I am an artist. I have been painting and writing and exploring all sorts of like ways of expression for a very long time. I studied graphic design in university. And yeah, so I knew that I had the skills. I knew I had the heart. I knew I could eventually come to something like this, but it took me a while. It took me a while um, to trust myself and to trust in my creative abilities to be able to do something like that. And the first deck came in 2020, and it was very early on the pandemic days, and it hit me. It was like, it's time, it's now, you can do this, let's go. And I laughed and I followed the instructions. That's the best way that I can describe it. The deck had a life of its own, it had an energy of its own. I became the translator of it into the human world. And that's how the first one came through. And the whole process took me 2 years to do the illustrations, to write the book. And then I put it on Kickstarter and I got it funded. And it was a epic experience. And I knew that there was more in me. I knew that that was just the beginning. So yeah, then comes the Elders as the second deck. And it's also been around 2 years or a little more even. So I know that you will probably take this everywhere, but that's a little introduction of how this came to be.
I just
Yeah,
want to
thank
say
you.
congratulations to for your first
Thank
launch and
you.
that you've worked through the process on your second one because it's a very special thing and you're like you say you're a conduit for that project that wants to come through and it comes through and there really are very little things more exciting than when you actually get it in your hand for the first time and it's like wow this wasn't just me that made this, it was like you in the universe and it's a cool thing, so congrats on that.
Thank you. Yes, totally. It really felt the first time ever that it felt like a co-creation. And bringing the first deck into life really shifted a lot of things for me in regards to my own creativity, in regards to the way that I wanted to work with people in yeah, there was like so much that was touched by that process that I still see it blooming and reaping its rewards 3 years later.
Well, thank you so much for this introduction and for sharing a bit more about your journey. There's definitely a lot more that I'm very curious about. Um, I love hearing from different people on this journey, how this process is so unique for everyone. You said it took you about 2 years to bring through this deck, and well, the first one and the second one as well. And I think that's just a great reminder for anyone. I know we've had those kinds of conversations in our community before where sometimes we might get impatient with ourselves through the process and think we're not moving fast enough. But it's beautiful to see that, when we give ourselves the space we need and just allow it to come through the way it wants to, that we can actually get there and in the end create something really beautiful that also holds the energy and everything that it needs to really make an impact in the world. Just seeing, yeah,
Mm.
seeing Amanda's comment here. Yeah, I know we talked about that last week in our Q&A call. Um, Yeah, so you mentioned that creating your deck and decks has really transformed the way that you work with your clients and the people in your community as well. Do you want to share a little bit more about what that exactly looked like? I know I work a
Mhm.
lot with business owners who want to create their decks to maybe support a part of their business, or there's so many ways you can use a deck to help grow your business and to work with people in different ways. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about what exactly that looks like for you and how it's helped you transform your work and take it to a next level as well.
I wasn't expecting that it was going to take me that long. And similar to what Amanda was sharing, I have a lot of fire in me. I have a lot of energy. I can like do things in like big leaps and bounds. And for whatever reason, this deck from the beginning, like the first deck, the Seeds of Magic, had a very specific instruction manual, if you will. It was like it was gonna come slow. It was the first tarot deck that I ever had. Like I had one tarot deck before, and I knew that like creating a tarot deck was like a whole other language that I needed to learn. In my mind, it was always gonna be an oracle, and then suddenly like it was like, no, it's a tarot deck. And then it was like, oh, hmm, okay, I know nothing about tarot, so what am I gonna do? And then was like I saw it very clear. It was either going to be a path of learning through like books and people and like experts in the field, or it was going to be a path of learning through creating. And I knew immediately that it was going to be learning through creating. And I needed to give myself the time to digest the energy of each one of the cards as I was learning the symbolism, the meaning, the energy of it. Also, like how did I want it to represent that energy? Was it going to be like similar to the original card or the original imagery, or would I take a twist on it and like give it that extra or like that different flavor? And I feel like in following the pulse of the deck, the impatience stopped being a thing. Like there was no rush anymore. I was just like, I'm following this. And there will be times where, for let's say 3 months, it would be quiet. And sort of like coming into deck number two, what I've also realized is that those quiet periods are integration periods, are periods of like just going and living. Because if the deck is going to have a life force with it needs to translate from like a living human being experience into whomever is holding the deck afterwards. So I relaxed in a way that I hadn't before. And and the first deck really taught me how to go slower. And it really shifted the way that I was perceiving creativity. As I told you in my little introduction, I have been creative my whole life. Like this has been with me since, since the beginning. But I also took a lot of detours in my life trying to figure out what I was going to do. Um, I feel like the education system, although I was always very leaning into the arts and the creative side, also, it was heartbreaking in many ways. I got I got conditioned into like this idea that creativity needed to yield and like it needed to be now, and I had to like meet the deadlines and meet the things. Also, one of the things that I told myself is like, I'm not gonna have a deadline anymore. That's like something that I also have shifted from my vocabulary. It's like I'm gonna have a due date. If I'm gonna have a deadline, I'm gonna be dead by the time that it's there. And it's either I'm gonna be dead or the project is gonna be dead. Who's gonna die? I'd rather not. So how about I have a due date? And a due date in, for people that have given birth or have like people nearby, you know that it's a estimated day. You have an idea, you have a mental container of how that looks like, and that's it. It's just for the mind to have an idea of like because the mind needs needs containers to be able to not fry itself. Um, and that was it. And I was like, I'll be ready when I'm ready. And I feel like that shifted so much of how I perceive my creativity and how I also engage with people that come to me asking about like, I know that there's this creativity thing in me or somewhere, or there's a longing for it. How do I bring it up? And the process of restoring that creativity back within me and back within someone else that I may be mentoring, um, follows that very soft path. And when I say soft, it doesn't necessarily need to be like squishy, but tender, kind, at the pace of nature. Nature is not in a rush, and everything gets done. That's like something that I also learned through that process, is like there's no rush and everything gets done in its own timing. So that's a bit of how this has
Yeah,
changed me.
I love that. And I can totally feel that in the energy of the deck. Maybe I'll just open it real quick. When I look at the cards, I feel they just have this really gentle, nourishing, childlike, playful energy. And like there are a lot of tarot decks that I don't really like working with, but this is one of the few that I feel like I just feel safe when I work with it. It just creates this safe container. I feel that what you just described really comes out.
Mm.
And no, it's one of my favorites. Yeah, and I love what you said about just needing to take those breaks too, to kind of, allow life to inspire the deck too. I've really noticed
Mhm.
this on my own journeys too. Like all of my decks are really inspired by life itself, and I'm in the process of creating a new one right now as well. And when I was bringing through the messages, like there was a time when like a lot of cards were coming through at once, and then I kind of hit a wall and I was like, okay, now I need to kind of I need to let life catch up with me, or almost
Mhm.
like there are new experiences that I need to go through first, and then that they will become part of the deck too. So yeah, I'm really happy to hear how you've learned to honor that process too, and just trust that journey. Yeah, Amanda's just commenting in the chat. We must slow down for our next inspirations to find us. Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear a little bit more about maybe some, I mean, you already shared a bit, but maybe some important lessons that you learned on this journey, or maybe also some challenges. Like, what were the biggest challenges that you worked through while creating your decks, and what are some of the most important lessons learned on this journey?
I think the biggest challenge was to allow myself to move at the pace of the deck itself, to not get ahead of myself and be like, oh, how am I going to market these, and how, like, to not, like in the moment where I was creating, I'm creating. In the moment where I'm editing, I'm editing. In the moment when I'm marketing, I'm marketing. And not try to get myself like 30 steps ahead. That was really challenging because I really wanted to like have like my fingers in all places. Um, but it was reassuring also, like every time that like jitters would come up, I was like, I'm here. I'm right now illustrating. So I'm gonna give myself this, like this is never gonna come back. And that was also really precious to realize when I finished illustrating the first deck, I had a little bit of an illustrating withdrawal. I had loved like the process of making that art so much. Um, that afterwards I was like, what am I gonna do now? What am I gonna draw? What's and then also very conscious of like I don't want to jump into the next thing. Like I don't want to just go and chase the next deck idea. And then I started doing portraits for friends. That was like how I channeled that urge of keep my hands in the illustrations. Um, so I think that that was like the biggest one for sure. And I guess it goes like tied like hand in hand with the lessons. I think the lesson was definitely to slow down, to enjoy each phase of the process. Um, that the deck was never gonna be born again through me again. Like this was just a unique experience that I wanted to be there for, in every step. And it was very rewarding in that way. It was very fulfilling. It has been delicious. It has also been the first thing that I've created many things, many iterations of my business, many projects, all the things. And I think that the first one for sure was a real paradigm shifting moment. I didn't know that it was rewiring my template for how I wanted to create, but it did. And looking back was like, wow, it creating that deck really changed me and my perception and my perspective. And um one of the things that I also share a lot in my mentoring spaces is like, I realized with that first deck that what I had been thinking, or what I had been taught that my creativity was actually productivity. There was definitely a flavor of creation underneath, but so much of the things that I had absorbed and the pace that I had absorbed and the ideas of how things should be and should look like were just production. And it was creating a lot of noise inside my head because I had this deep desire to give myself to creation, but all the hows and the approach to creativity was a productivity model. And it had me for years have this like love-hate relationship with creativity, that I actually then realized that it had nothing to do with creativity in its essence. It was like overlaid with productivity, and that was what was creating a lot of distortion and a lot of noise. So yeah, those are the biggest lessons for sure.
Yeah, these are some really beautiful lessons, and thank you for sharing those reflections. I think these are things that almost everyone can relate to, and I love how you went through kind of this deconditioning process too through your creative journey. And I think there's so many things that we've learned, I mean, in school and growing up, and I think especially about productivity, just this, I mean, from a very young age, we just kind of learn how to just push through it and
Mhm.
and then, yeah, I think creativity can very much feel like that. I remember it was like that for me too for many years, and definitely been on a similar journey of just really learning to trust more and be much more in that intuitive flow and let go of that idea that I always need to be producing something. And yeah, I feel like creativity, when we really allow the creative process, it's really something that wants to come from within, and it's like something that wants to be set free. And when we can really like surrender to that, then it's almost like just giving ourselves permission to let it come through when it's ready and giving birth to it. Um, yeah, there's so much beauty there. And I also love what you said about really focusing on one thing at a time. I remember when I first started creating like my first decks, like often I just shut myself down by trying to figure out everything ahead of time. Like I just wanted to create it, but then okay, how am I gonna print it? How am I gonna do this and that? And it took me a while to really fully bring through my first deck. Like maybe started a few
Mhm.
and didn't finish them because I just blocked myself so much with all the questions and all the endless research. And so, yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Um, I'm seeing a question here in the chat from Valerie. When a new deck idea arrives, what does it feel like for you? How can you tell if it is an intuitive hit to start working on it, or if it is just a blip of an idea that wasn't big enough for a whole deck, maybe only one painting?
I love this question. And I can tell you how I think the Seeds of Magic was very clear. Like it like came and I was like, oh, a deck, and then was like, it's a tarot deck, and I was like, oh, okay, I don't know anything about tarot, you know? Like it had a very clear direction. The Elders, though, I illustrated the first card in August of 2022. And it was like one morning I woke up, I had a dream, and I just came here and I opened my iPad and opened the thing and chose the file for like the card format. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Could have been squared, could have been, like any other shape, but for whatever reason, I chose that one. And I illustrated this elder. It's in the deck. I'll show it to you in a second. Um, and I left it. It was like, okay, I don't know, but this needed to be like done today, now. Cool. Um, and then a year later, summer of 2023, I like it was like coming. like the idea of like doing a deck, and I felt like, okay, maybe it has some elders. Oh, that would be cool. And then maybe it also has some herbs, and maybe it has also some animals, and it's gonna be this thing. And at one point I realized that I had like 4 or 5 decks that I was trying to duct tape all together and make it just one thing. And I had a moment of clarity around the summer solstice of that year that was like, it is an elders deck, like fair and square. And then when that landed, was like, okay, let's all the other things just weeded out and was like, okay, we're here. Let's do this. Um, and similar to what Anna was saying, I had, I think like over the following 6 weeks, I created 10 cards. And then I had a very quiet period of months. Um, but I trusted, like when I had already like 10 or yeah, 8 or 10, I was like, I see it. I see how they're coming. I see it. I just need to give myself some time to go through it, to live a lot of what I wanted to share in the deck as well. It also felt, I feel like the seeds of magic, and I think it also comes in the name, like seeds are like young and full of life, and it had this like very bursty energy of like young new life. And the elders was almost like the complete opposite energy. It was like, we are mature, we have bloomed, we have grown, there's things that we want to say. And I needed to give myself also the permission to mature in the ideas in and the life experiences, to be able to be fair with what I was creating, to be like a genuine messenger from the elders. And I think if the seeds of magic slowed me down, the elders slowed me even more. This was like an inner slowing down of like, ooh, like what does like this transmission feels like. So yeah, that, like, to answer your question around like, is it one intuitive hit? Nah, sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. I think the thing is like to just follow the pulse of it. And if it ends up being a collection of like 10 beautiful illustrations that you have, and then that's it, that's beautiful. Maybe it turns into something else in a year from now, when something in your life clicks in a different way and you see it with different eyes. That's also something that I have been way softer with myself around what I create. It's like, yeah, the seeds that I plant today are not going to give me fruit tomorrow. And like some seeds are tomato seeds that will, grow in a season. And then some of them are fruit trees that will give me fruit in 20 years. Well, who knows? So I'll just pick up whatever I'm receiving, and sometimes laying it down, sometimes following it for a little bit, um, and trusting that it will come around, that if the deck is wants to come through, it will let itself be known.
Thank you for sharing those reflections. And I think there's so much I could say about this too. I see there's another question about finding inspiration as well. There's just something that's coming through for me here. I think I've seen you posting about human design and gene keys before as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm.
Like I've really been exploring that for myself and my journey as well. We're actually going to have a workshop in the in the community as well later this month. But I feel that kind of reflects that journey too of just coming more into the body, and we just know physically at some point it's not so much about just like validating an idea mentally, or I mean sometimes it can help to do some research, but often it's not just the inspiration, but we really just feel it in the body, and kind of get that sense of timing more physically when it's time. Has that been your experience as well?
For sure. And I think the question, where do you look for inspiration? It might sound like really lofty, but like in life itself. Um, in my life, in my relationships, in my conversations, in beautiful art that I see from other people. Um, but for like, let's say like the juice of the card, or the meaning, or like where I want to go with it, it definitely comes from my life. And when I start seeing patterns in conversations that I've had, it's like, oh, there's like something here. And it happened that during the time that I was creating the Elders deck, that was like something that was very in my mind, in my field of vision. I was very eyes open of like, what are the themes? Because also this is also interesting to share. Um, the tarot deck, which I didn't know at the point where I was doing it, but um, has a structure, as you may be familiar with. It has like 78 cards. They have these, they're the major arcana, the minor arcana. They come like in, it's almost like the structure was already set for me. So I just had to come in and see and feel it and do my own magic around it. For the Oracle deck was like, okay, you're on your own. How many cards are you gonna do? What's gonna be the theme? What are gonna be the subjects? Like, who are gonna be these characters? It was no structure, so I had to build the structure for myself as well. Um, of like, okay, like in the end, okay, well, it's gonna be elders. Deal. Um, what are these elders gonna be about? I don't know, but I'll listen. I'll listen and I'll pay attention and I'll absorb my life in that way. And um there's I can show you a little. There's like the Elder of Beauty. And there's the Elder of Cacao. And there's the Elder of Food. And so on and so forth. And there are 44 of them. So there are sometimes like concepts, sometimes
We
themes,
see like
sometimes
two more.
conversations. Yeah, of course.
I was just
And
really
many more if
enjoying
you want.
seeing those.
Yeah, these are
Yeah.
beautiful.
There's the Elder of Presence.
I love the colors.
She's gorgeous. There's the Elder of Rage.
Hey.
Yeah, I can show more. But yeah, I can keep showing them.
I was thinking maybe later, towards the end of the call, maybe we can pull some cards and we'll get to see some
Absolutely.
more. Um, yeah, I just I love the way you illustrate. You have a really unique way of bringing through. I mean, your style is so unique. I just love every single one of these.
Do you also want to know something about that? When I started creating the Seeds of Magic, I was convinced that I had no style. I was like, I'm just gonna start, but this is not, I don't know how this is gonna look like anything cohesive. And then 10 cards in, I was like, oh, it does seem like I have a style. And by now it's like, of course I have a style. And it's effortless and it just comes through. And I'm excited to see it and that people recognize it also. This was like something that I got back as a feedback. It's like, of course, it's very obvious that is your style. So that's fun.
I just love it. Like I've never seen anything like it before, and I just love when it comes through so effortlessly. I think that's when you know that it's coming, it's really coming from that creative part of you, that deeper inner creator, and it's just your unique expression. Um, Amanda has a question, if you
Mhm.
feel inspired to share. What medium do you use for creating your illustrations?
100% digital art, iPad, and a pen. That's my favorite setup.
Mm.
Mm,
Do you use
yeah,
Procreate?
Procreate. Yes. I was an illustrator. In university, I learned Illustrator, Photoshop, all the things. Once I got an iPad and Procreate, I never looked back. I do pretty much everything on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of creators love to use it. I think Procreate has really revolutionized things for a lot of
Hmm.
people. Like I've never used it myself, but I can just imagine. I remember just trying to do some stuff in Illustrator a long time ago, and I got really frustrated with the mouse and even trying a tablet and just imagining like if you have a pen and a tablet, it must be way easier.
Hmm.
I would love to hear a little bit more about your journey of launching your first deck with your Kickstarter campaign. I know I got your deck when you were launching it. I just saw you sharing the Kickstarter and I knew I wanted to support you on this journey of launching the deck. And yeah, so you hit your goal and probably exceeded it
Mhm.
and did
Mhm.
really well. Were there some, I guess this was probably your first Kickstarter that you ever did, or had you done one before?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm. It
yeah,
was the first one.
so what was that like for you, kind of doing that for the first time? And was it the way you expected, or were there any unexpected challenges and things that you had to work through during that process of launching? And yeah, so just love to hear anything you'd like to
Mhm.
share about that.
That was definitely the most nerve-wracking part because it's like, okay, this is ready, and I really would love to see it in the world. I would really want people to have it. I decided to do Kickstarter because from a million other projects that I've had done in my life before, I would print, I don't know, however many sets of whatever the thing I was making or produced anything, and then I would have a massive backlog in my house waiting to be distributed and sold. And there was something about that that felt quite heart crushing. And I was like, I don't want that. I want to be efficient in the way of like, I want people to pre-order the deck. I'll figure it out later if I'm gonna produce more, if I'm gonna, I don't know, if I'll find like someone that will publish it later. That is also like an extra step. For now, I really want to just see this and I want people to have it and I want to see what other people's experiences is with it. Um, so that was the first moment of reality of like, okay, that's my decision for doing a Kickstarter. I had seen people doing it, but I had never done it, obviously. Thankfully, my husband is really skilled with like budgets and stuff. That's absolutely out of my wheelhouse. I can do a lot of things, but not budgets and stuff like that. So he helped out with that, and then we figured out what the budget was. I I had this inner sensation that I had it in me to actually pull it off, but I was very, very nervous. Of will I have enough people? Like my basically my threshold would have been to like sell 100 decks, um, from what I can remember. And I think if I'm not wrong, the goal was 5,555. And and I feel like in the first 2 days I reached half of it. And that was very overwhelming, very unexpected, very cool. I mean, I think every person that I had met in the previous years before that, although it was pandemic and all of that stuff, but during that time, a lot of people knew about it. A lot of people jumped in like first second that I announced it. It was very exciting in that way. And then it's for freaking 4 weeks and I still have halfway to go. And what am I gonna do? So I remember having a little like it was very exciting to see the rise of it, and then it plateaued for a while, and then I was like, okay, what am I gonna do now? And I remember very clearly, I had a moment where I was like, I'm gonna ask people. Like, I can just be here hoping and maybe posting on social media, but the power of this is if I'm gonna reach out for people and be like, hey, would you be willing to jump with me on a Instagram live and just talk about this for half an hour? And I think every person that I contacted said yes. And it was so beautiful also to receive the support from other people, to have like people be like, yes, of course I will, like, when, how do we do this? Like, what do you need? All like very, very supportive. And it felt really, really beautiful. And I also realized um that it was almost like each one of these people had come through different points in my life. People that I had met 10 years ago in this course in Hawaii, people that I had met like 5 years ago in this course in Germany, people that I had met through this online community in like 2014. There was like people from every little bit of my journey were there saying like, yes, how can I serve? How can I help you? How can I support you? How can we make this happen? Um, it was a lot about like just getting out of my own way and be willing to receive other people's support, and like why wouldn't people be excited? That was also like something that I really shifted for me. It's like if I was on the other side, I'm a freaking cheerleader. You know, if I love your restaurant, I'll tell every freaking person that your restaurant is the most delicious thing in the whole wide world. If, you know, like if you have a kick-ass product, I will tell everyone from the rooftops because I freaking love it. So why wouldn't people respond the same way? Why would I assume that people are like, if that's the reaction, that's not my people anyway. That's not the people that I want this to go to. So by default, it's already, you know, cleared out a bit. Um, yeah, and then the people that did say yes were like, yes, and let's do this. And in the end, I hit the goal and I went over it and it was exciting. It was beautiful. It was like, okay, it's happening. I feel like the Kickstarter, looking back, was actually easier than I thought. Shit part was the shipping. Like, let's be like fully honest. That was like a different kind of world, and that one wasn't that fun. I would much rather do like 5 Kickstarters rather than like ship the whole thing again. I'm heading there. I know like I want to do exactly the same with the elders. Uh, and I already know what's ahead, and it's fine. I've made my peace with the shipping part of it. But yeah, the Kickstarter was fun.
I think it's I I loved hearing all of that because when we launched our first Kickstarter, we also set our goal at 5,555. And it was
Mhm.
the same exact situation. I had to overcome that kind of imposter syndrome because I'm very introverted too. And I was afraid to ask people. I did spend a lot of time making big lists of everybody that I knew. And but like when it launched, you know, you hit that initial burst. And then I remember sitting there and being like, oh no, I have to actually start asking other people, you know, and that overcoming of that fear and that blockage and that shift in the mindset is actually what opened up the energetic vortex for more people to come in and support it. And then you start to, like you said, you gain the momentum of people. You're like, why would they not want to support a small creator like in a world of all this like mass commercialized junk that's in the world, you know, like, and you just start getting all these yeses, and then yeah, we hit the goal, and it was very similar. So it was
Mhm.
cool hearing you share
Mhm.
that. And also with shipping, I remember we weren't prepared for that the first time around, which is a big reason why we put this community together, is because we have all the experience now, and I don't want people to have to
Mhm.
go through it the way that I did. But there's also so much to learn in that process. Well, you look back and it's kind of fun. It's like, wow, that was crazy, but we did it, you know. And now where you
Totally.
are, you have another deck coming, and the momentum just keeps building. So I
Mhm.
appreciate you sharing all that.
Thank you, Heath.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing. That was such a beautiful story, Andrea. Um, I think it's quite common that like there's a lot of momentum for most creators in the very beginning, and then there's a plateau for a while, and then towards the very end, there's another push. But I'm so happy to hear, you know, how you navigated that and you didn't give up and you
Mhm.
just came up with those solutions. I think you probably just came through maybe your soul coming through and just yeah, you got to reach out for support and such a great reminder that we're just not alone on this journey. And I think especially with the Kickstarters too, it's that's the exact core idea of supporting each other and yeah, I love how you navigated this so beautifully
Mhm.
and yeah, do you want to share a little bit more about the challenges with the shipping? Because I do remember when you were sharing about that, when you're like when you had received your decks and you were feeling really stuck with the shipping part. I know that's
Oh.
I'm gonna do a Kickstarter for my next deck as well, and I've never done one before, so that's something I'm a little nervous about as well. So, um, like how, like what were the specific challenges what that came up, and how did you resolve them? And maybe also, is there anything that you're going to do differently this
Mhm.
time?
Well, I think like the first thing is like it was a first time. So first times are shitty. They're difficult. You don't know what's happening. Uh and now it's a second time, so I feel a little bit like okay, I know how to work the kinks of it, and I just have to be patient with myself. That's the main thing holding that for now. Um there were like two things, and this came through a friend of mine that really, like, it really slapped me on the face. I basically had, I think, over a month of conversations with like people on the phone from the Dutch postal service. I live in the Netherlands. So I couldn't freaking find what would be the description from for the box that I was shipping. Is it a package? Is it a small? Like there was from the brochures, from what I got on the phone, every person would tell me something different. And of course, the shipping was depending on, like, the value of the shipping was depending on what kind of package it was. So stressful, so annoying. I remember being like on the phone, I don't know for how long, just on that like music that they put on you for hold for hours. I got very annoyed at one lady one day and we had like a massive fight, and then I hung up the phone and my husband was like, I don't think that that's how we do this. This is not how we're gonna go about this. I was like, what are you saying? And I was so pissed. He was like, I think you just need to take a breather and go at this with like honey, you know? I don't know what's the saying, but basically like don't pull it out like so harshly. Don't bring like your full Colombian fire to it. Just bring like some softness. Just be like, I don't know. I wasn't prepared to receive that gracefully, but afterwards I did. And when I did, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try. And then this guy picked up the phone, and I was genuinely just mocking my husband, to be honest, trying to be the nicest lady on the phone. And it freaking worked. Like the guy actually helped me finally at the end. And I had yes, you can catch more bees with honey than with vinegar. Exactly, Amanda. That was it. And then a friend of mine was like, maybe it's not working because you're not ready to like let it go. And that was such a hit on the face because I had been just quote unquote like raging with the postal service and just being like like the annoyed customer. Um, and then when she said that, I was so humbled. I was like, fuck yes. I don't I don't think that I'm ready to let it go. It had been with me for 2 years. It walked me through the whole pandemic. You know, it was, and this gets me emotional every time I say it, but it's very true. It's like creating that deck was really that lifesaver through so much of that confusion, so much of that disruption, so much of the state of the world. Like that deck really helped me through of all of that. Being here, not being able to go to Colombia, not being able to know, like, if my family would get sick, would I be able to travel? Like all these really intense things that by now we feel like it's like a long time ago, but it's not really that long ago. Um, this deck helped me through it. And then when it was like actually time to let it go and freaking put it in boxes and ship it to people, I energetically was holding it back. And when my friend said that, I was like, oh, okay, fair. And 2 days later, I had the conversation with this guy, and then everything was, clear. And then from then on was just a lot of logistics of like getting everything in the system and all that. It's also not my favorite, but I did it and it went fine. But yeah, that's my story with the shipping process.
Oh, that's such a fun story. And yeah, I think this is such a common thing for us creatives as well. I've heard this from so many artists, that process of letting go. I know so many artists who run into this problem when it comes to selling their art. Like they've created this baby and it's like this unique piece of art, and then it's like energetically there's a resistance to letting it go, and then it can block the sales. So it's interesting how that showed up for you on this journey of, I mean, you were able to get the decks out into the world, but not without that battle.
Mhm,
So yeah,
mhm.
that's fun. Um,
Ah,
yeah, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, so we're almost at an hour with our conversation. So I was thinking if you're feeling inspired, maybe we could pull some cards, or if you want to pull a card from your new deck for maybe just for everyone who's here with us today,
yes, let's
or
do
whatever
that.
you feel inspired to do.
No, let's pull a card. I feel like that would be really sweet. Maybe one, maybe two. I don't know. We'll see. Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a delicious thing to talk about this
Yeah, I'm super
process.
happy. I'm feeling so inspired.
If it feels good for you, I invite you to close your eyes and take some deep breaths with me. If you rather keep your eyes open, that's totally fine too. It helps me just like center to take a couple deep breaths. So, um, yeah, let's land here and inhale deep, deep, deep into your belly and let it go. Inhale deep, deep, deep into your belly and release. And maybe one more time. Inhale deep and let it go. Mm. Thank you for each one of you for being here and for offering your attention and your intention for this conversation. And I'm going to call the elders to come through with a message that resonates with this group. Mm. Okay, it's one elder. Oh man, I kid you not. I have like every time that I've pulled cards, it's been the same card, and I love it. It's the Elder of Resilience. I'll let you like look at it a little better. He's gorgeous. I mean, I don't know why he's so insistent, but apparently his message is a lot like something that we all need a lot these days. And it says rupture, suffering, repair, and wholeness. There are experiences in life that shatter us deeply. A part of us breaks in an unfolding of unavoidable events. When the pain is rejected and the pressure of getting over it takes over, the cycle of suffering begins. We go about life splintered inside, covering our broken bones with band-aids. And when we have no space to tend to these places, they are passed down to the next generation and the next and the next until someone comes in with the sole intention to put the pieces back together. You may very well be the one in your lineage that carries such capacity. Tending to what has been broken takes a lot of softness. It cannot be approached with harsh and hasty hands. The pain must be invited in, felt, and honored. Each piece must be welcomed with no reproach. It's the willingness of your heart, of your own heart, to acknowledge the core woundedness that allows you to see how much wholeness there is. You learn that life is less about preventing the rupture, but learning how to repair it. Resilience is the capacity to see what was once broken whole again. You cannot force it. You can only open up to it gradually and caringly. Each elder has an invitation. It says, take a deep belly breath and close your eyes. From the center of your heart, call in the pieces that are ready to come back home. Call them with a little hum, a little song, a lullaby. Call what is ready to be brought back to wholeness. Trust your capacity. You were born for this.
Yeah, such a beautiful message, and I just love the energy. Um, I love that, I think it's kind of a recurring theme here too, but combining that message of resilience with, again, softening into the process and just, yeah, so kind of bringing in that energy as well, and not just feeling like we need to push through everything, but it's also kind of surrendering to the process and really receiving the medicine in that way.
Mm.
Mm. I
Mm.
love the illustration too. Can you show it to us one more time?
Yes, of course.
Um, yeah, it almost looks to me like he's holding an egg. Like it's kind of I don't know, the shattered pieces kind of coming back together and something growing from it, but it's also like
Mhm,
that nourishing space of new growth. Is that
mhm.
like intentional? Were you intentionally
Yeah.
making it look like an egg?
I don't it for me was more like a pot. You know that Japanese art that they like fill up the gaps with gold. It sort of like had that feeling of like, okay, it was broken and he fixed it, and then now like life is growing from it, which is like sort of like that core message of resilience. It was like broken and he saw it whole again, so it can hold life again. Um, yeah. And his face, I mean, like it's like shitty through the camera, but like I even have like a print of this in my altar because it is just so beautiful. Like I want to know what his name is, where he lives, like what he ate for breakfast. Like it's a whole thing. It's like I want to know if he smells like rosemary, that kind of like delicious questions. And funny enough, I just have these just to show you quickly. The first elder that I drew, that story that I was telling you, that I had that dream, and it came as a illustration that had nowhere to go, but it did. It's the Elder of Time, and she's gorgeous also.
Yeah, I love this one. I love
Mm-hmm.
the colors and the magical
Mm-hmm.
crystals and
Mm-hmm.
mm,
Mm.
yeah. But yeah, I love what you shared about that Japanese technique too. I know I've read about it before and just that idea that we can bring back together broken pieces and create something really beautiful with it. And
Mm.
so Valerie is asking, how do we buy these decks from you? Is the Seeds of Magic Tarot, is it still available? Or
Yes.
yeah?
It's available for specials people. Like right now, I have no plan with it. Maybe I can talk to Anna about it after this call. I have some copies from the original Kickstarter, so you can definitely I can put you my I can put you my email here, and um yeah, and I can hold on. Can type and talk at the same time. Here. Um yeah. So the Seeds of Magic I still have decks available. And for the elders, we'll be on Kickstarter. Probably most likely aiming for it for my birthday, which is April 16.
Do you have a pre-launch page up for it yet?
No, not yet.
Well, whenever you get it, let us know so
Ah,
we can follow it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and we'll
yeah,
we'll definitely share it in the community as well and
hmm
yeah, let
for
us
sure.
know when
Thank
it's
you.
ready.
Yes, of course. Thank you very
So
much.
So yeah, just for everyone who might be watching this later and who can't see the chat. So the email is nourishingwitch@gmail.com, or I guess you could also go to your website,
Yes.
nourishingwitch.com, and then
I think
Yeah.
I follow you, Nourishing Witch. I think I saw you on Instagram. You're on Instagram, right?
Yes, I am a nourishing witch on Instagram.
I was not manifesting you. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a cute name, and I'm like, oh okay.
Oh my God, here we are.
Like I was so not trying to manifest you. But question. Why the heck don't we just like, because I already wrote five, I'm on my number 6 deck. Artwork, I make it really quick because I know what I want. I have my digital app. But the thing is, girl, how do we find a publisher? And why can't we just like, why do we have to sell the deck ourselves? Why can't we just put it onto Amazon, have them sell and all of that? Why we have to worry crazy about shipping?
I at least from what I know, but this is might be my own version. Probably Anna and Heath will have more information about that. Is that there are very little like print on demand options that can just like print your card, like sort of like how some self-published authors would do it on Amazon, that like Amazon prints the book for them on demand when they buy it, and then that's shipped. I know that there's some options, but they're quite expensive to create like a deck every time someone decides to order it. So I think that that's the main reason, at least for me, at least from what I know. Maybe this is not updated fully. Maybe Anna and Heath will have more information about that, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, we can share a little bit more about that. First of all, thank you, Andrea. I think it definitely kind of sums it up in a nutshell. There are some print-on-demand options, but there are none that link directly to Amazon. As far as I know, it's definitely not as easy as just publishing a book or printing a book on demand. There are some print-on-demand companies that allow you to publish or kind of sell the deck through their platform. Um,
Mm.
the main issue that I have with those is that, well, there are a few issues, but first of all, the platforms are just not very user friendly, and um, like there are no marketplaces that I just really like that much, like visually or energetically. It can be really difficult to find the products and so on. Then printing on demand. I mean, the good thing about printing on demand it is you don't really have to invest upfront and getting like a big batch of decks printed, but then yeah, like your investment per deck is going to be a lot higher than when you print in bigger batches. And then there's usually also a trade-off with quality and customization options and so on. Um, there are ways to kind of automate selling on Amazon or other marketplaces, Etsy. So this is something that I've done with quite a few of my clients. There are fulfillment companies that can help you kind of bridge that gap if you print like a larger batch at a time and then you store it at a warehouse in like a fulfillment center and then you can link that to whatever e-commerce platform you're using. Could be Amazon, it could be Etsy or Shopify or anything like that. And then whenever an order comes in, then it automatically gets forwarded to their system and then they fulfill it for you. It's not something that I would necessarily recommend doing right away when you're just getting started because you do want to get a feel for, how many decks you're actually selling and create some consistency so that you know that you can consistently cover the costs for that as well, and it's going to pay off for you. But it is possible. Um, Working with a publisher, I guess it's another thing that you mentioned. So you can try to find a publisher. I mean, there are traditional publishing companies like Hay House is like one that a lot of people want to work with. It's definitely not going to be easy to get in with them if you don't already have like a bigger established platform. There are some other uh, smaller publishers that publish decks specifically and just spiritual products that do accept submissions. There's pros and cons for working with traditional publishers. One thing is if you can get on board with a traditional publisher, I mean they'll help you with part of the process. They'll help you produce the deck. Typically, you don't have to invest in like printing the deck yourself. They can help you with the graphic design and editing and all of that and just manage the marketing as well. They do typically expect you to have a platform as well. Like you will have to help promote the deck and all of that too. Um, the downsides of working with traditional publishers, I would say, first of all, you don't have as much control over the creative process because they will likely want to change some things, maybe about the art or the writing or whatever to just make it as marketable as possible from their perspective. Also, you'll typically just get a small percentage of the sales. So usually it's like 10% royalties. So it's not going to be very much unless you do have a best-selling product and they sell like thousands of copies per month or year, then it can
Feel like a
pay.
ripoff. That feels such like a ripoff.
The thing
Uh,
is, there are a lot of costs involved. Like we talked about this last week. Like it's the traditional publishing model is a very inefficient system because there's so many middlemen. You gotta like with the production costs and then the distributors that help, the wholesalers in between. So yeah, so that's why if you can set up your own system, it's not going to be for everyone again. But if like selling it yourself can pay off more in certain situations. I don't know if you want to say anything about that too, Heath, from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered most of it. I would say that with Kickstarter, crowdfunding specifically for card decks has been something that a lot of people have had success with, but it's also not easy, as we've been talking about today. The reason that we've always opted towards that is because you get to raise the money for your project before you actually print them. So when you raise the money, then you have the money to actually manufacture the products. And it doesn't make it any more simple to ship out or anything like that, like you're asking about. But they are kind of smaller. You know, if you raise $5,000 and you end up selling a couple hundred decks, it's not that difficult to ship out the decks, but it gets more and more complicated based on your location. And I could see it being much easier for somebody in the United States, where the majority of people on Kickstarter funding are in the United States, versus maybe where anyone else is living around the world. So it's something it's like every single option has a hard place, and you kind of just have to fill out, you know, what's right for you. The reason that we put together this group in the community is because you know, it's always our intention never to tell anybody else how they should do something, but just to show how we do it, and so that you can learn and kind of find something that's good for you. And Anna has all of her own experience in her, you know, building her little publishing company and working with so many people, and all the people that she's worked with have all created decks in maybe slightly different ways and put them on different marketplaces. And I see some people do really well just selling straight through Etsy, and Jason and I have had a lot of success selling through Amazon, Kickstarter, and through our own website. And we see some people who just do Amazon, and that works well. And then you see some small publishing companies that are trying to help independents like everyone here get on a platform, you know, and like onboard onto their online store, so that you have a place where your deck can be. And then, like Anna was talking about earlier, a lot of times maybe your deck is in a third-party fulfillment center, so whenever there's an order, they ship it out for you. But it is a lot to think about. But when you actually put it down in front of you and kind of think about your goals, and you kind of make them, you know, like digestible, there are systems and processes and solutions for pretty much everything. So but it's a complicated subject, and that's ultimately why we come together in the group, is to have the conversations about how to do this stuff, because we did it the hard way. We had no idea how to do any of it, and we've spent the last 10 years pretty much, you know, spending dumb amounts of money trying to fix stuff, test stuff, and like we've learned a lot. And so like I always want to help people as much as I can avoid the stuff that we did wrong, and kind of teach what worked for us. And
I
so
definitely need to learn everything that you did wrong and not to do that. I'm in Australia, but the shipping to USA is gonna make me feel like I'm gonna be bleeding, honestly.
yeah,
So like, yeah, the shipping probably is my biggest challenge. I really wanted to publish with a good published company, but I don't like anyone to insult the purity of my creation, because it's channeled from my own spirit, my own soul. So I'm interested in the mastermind. I don't have problem creating my cards. I already wrote them. I know my expertise. I can get the art done. It's just the rest is really challenging. So
Yeah, you
any
could do that.
questions that you have, you can totally DM us
Yeah.
directly, and we
Thank
can
you.
talk specifically with you. Yeah, we're gonna have to probably wrap this up soon.
thank you.
I just want to say, I'm really excited about your deck, like truly.
Thank
When I
you.
was looking at the artwork, I felt something densely,
Mm.
and it's not the case for every single deck. And I know it's not the case for not everybody holds the same decks and feels the same energy, but you often can feel when somebody spends that much spirit, like, not spend isn't even the right word, channels that much spirit into a project, right? And just telling by the way that you were holding it, feeling it, showing it, speaking about it, the reverence, like it was powerful. And I'm really grateful that you came, because it actually shifted something energetically in me, and I think that was really great. And I love that you've worked through this process of creating your decks and figuring it out on your own. And you're doing it. And so, you know, it's inspiration for everybody who maybe has started doing a deck or has a dream of doing a deck. That mostly everyone here who has a deck was at one place, at one point in a position of like getting the idea download and being like, I have no idea how to do that, and could have made a decision to turn the other way and go do something else, but didn't. Like actually decided to show up and nurture that and water it and plant it. And then, like you were talking about earlier, maybe the tomato plant grows for a year, and that tomato plant might be an Amazon marketplace, or a fruit tree grows and you like ended up, you know, doing multiple Kickstarters over and over again. But I just want to say thank you again for bringing it up and coming here and sharing. And I don't know, Anna, if you have any other questions or if there's any other things that you want to talk about before we bounce. If anyone has questions about the deck creators community and Launchpad, there's so much to talk about there. You can contact us directly, and we're happy to answer all those questions too. And but if anyone has any other questions specifically about this deck and this call, that would be awesome as well. So
Thank you, Heath.
yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Just want to say thank you as well, Andrea, for being here with us today. I don't know if there's anything like any last words that you want to share with us before we hop off.
I do. I think following the thread that you were just pointing out, Heath, I feel for me, and this is like something that I just feel like I can share as a little, I don't want to say advice, but kind of. To let like your deck be medicine for you first. Because if it's medicine for you, it will be medicine for other people. If it is like in this like rushy process of like I want to get this product out, it's gonna have that feel too. So I really, really, I was thinking about this, and then like you, Heath, like said, you know, you're really, really loving words that I receive with so much love. And what I hear from what you're saying is like, is like that piece. Like this deck has been medicine for me in the past 2 years and a bit, and it's felt, and that's precious and beautiful. So let your deck be medicine for you, and take that medicine often and for as long as it needs as it's needed, and then offer it to the world. What a beautiful thing.
Oh, thank you for that. And I totally resonate with that. And I think that's exactly what we feel like. I feel the same way, Heath. Just when I look at the cards, I really feel something. And there are just certain decks that have that quality. And I think there's that medicine. It's very similar to the process that I go through with creating my decks too. I always feel like I receive the medicine that I need for myself first, and then it goes into the deck, and then that really creates that kind of product where people just really feel it and resonate with it. And then it's really, there's something really deep in that. And it's also something that I like to share, even in connection with, like once it's time to start sharing it with the world, and maybe there's some challenges coming up on that journey. I feel it can be so helpful to just keep using the medicine of our own decks and to work through that process as well, because then we can feel it working on us, and then through that there's something that gets unblocked, and we feel more inspired to share with the world as well. Yeah, so thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to your new deck, and definitely let me know, or let us know when it's ready on Kickstarter, and we'll help
For
you
sure.
share it as well.
Thank you.
And yeah, and maybe I'll just
Thank you.
share the links one more time. You can find Andrea on nourishingwitch.com, and you're definitely very active on Instagram as well. Nourishing Witch, is that your handle?
Yep.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
And you can find us on deckcreators.com. You can find all the information about our program, and also there's a contact form if you want to just send us some questions. We're happy to answer any questions you might have. And yeah, thanks everyone for being here with us. I'm so happy we got so many people to join us today. And yeah, there's so much more. But it just feels really beautiful to come together in this space. And I'm really grateful to you, Andrea, for being our first guest, and really looking forward to bringing in more deck creators to collaborate and co-create with.